welcome back to the Daily Poem here on the Close Reads Podcast Network. I'm David Curran. Today's poem is by Wendell, somebody that most of you have probably read at some length. Many of you are probably more familiar, however, with his fiction or his essays. But if you are not familiar with his poetry, then hopefully today will be an impetus for you to make yourself familiar with the broad and really fantastic canon of Barrie's poetry. For years and years now, Wendell Berry has been at work on a series of poems that he works on while he takes his solitary walks on his property in Kentucky, his farm, walking along the riverfronts and through the woods and through the fields and with his sheep and his dogs. And those poems are called the Sabbath poems. And this particular poem was published in a collection called This Day, Sabbath Poems Collected and New. And these poems were written from 1979 to 2013. This particular poem was written in 1980. It's just listed under the number 2 in the section on the 1980 Sabbath poems. The eager dog lies strange and still who roamed the woods with me. Then, while I stood or climbed the hill or sat under a tree awaiting what more time might say, he thrashed in the undergrowth, pursuing what he scared away, made ruckus for us both. He's dead. I go more quiet now, stillness added to me by time and sorrow, mortal law, by loss of company that his new absence has made new. Though it must come by doom, this quiet comes by kindness too, and brings me nearer home. For as I walk the wooded land the morning of God's mercy, beyond the work of mortal hand, seen by more than I see, the quiet deer look up and wait, held still and quick of grace. And I wait, stop footstep and thought. We stand here face to face. Last fall, I had the great opportunity to go visit Wendell Berry, to spend some time with him, a couple hours on his farm, and to interview him for a feature that ultimately went into Forma, into our magazine. You can actually find that interview over at formajournal.com if you were so inclined, if you haven't done so yet. And one of the things that became clear while I was visiting with he and his wife is how much they love their dogs. There were 2 border collies there, Liz and Maggie, and they were lovely dogs who came down to greet us down the steps in front of the house, down by the road, and brought us up to the front porch where Wendell was waiting for us. So this is one of those poems for which that context is really lovely for me. Those dogs, while we were talking, one laid on the porch and one laid out back just outside the window where we could see it, and they would browse around the yard and occasionally go check on the sheep who were grazing on the hillside. So I can imagine back in 1980, Wendell Berry wandering through the woods with one of his dogs, and I don't know that it was a border collie then, but I can imagine him walking through the woods with his dog and enjoying the company of that dog. And then, of course, when that dog is gone, the absence would be felt until after a while, his eyes are open to new things that are reappearing to him because the dog is no longer there. And I think this image is representative. It's a microcosm of so much of Barrie's work, that when we have our eyes open to the world around us, we can see things we've never seen before, and every day brings something new. And sometimes loss is tragic. It's awful, and it leaves us lonely, and it makes the world seem less of a bright place. But at the same time, a theme throughout Barrie's work is that sometimes that loss can also open our eyes to things that we would have never seen before, to make new things meaningful for us. There's something of a dark grace in that, I think, borrowing from the O'Connor idea, the Flannery O'Connor idea. I'm going to read this one more time before I let you go. This is, again, the second Sabbath poem from 1980 in the collection This Day by Wendell Berry. The eager dog lies strange and still who roamed the woods with me. Then, while I stood or climbed the hill or sat under a tree awaiting what more time might say, he thrashed in undergrowth, pursuing what he scared away, made ruckus for us both. He's dead. I go more quiet now, stillness added to me by time and sorrow, mortal law, by loss of company that his new absence has made new. Though it must come by doom, this quiet comes by kindness too, and brings me nearer home. For as I walk the wooded land the morning of God's mercy, beyond the work of mortal hand, seen by more than I see, the quiet deer look up and wait, held still and quick of grace. And I wait, stop, footstep, and thought. We stand here, face to face. This has been another episode of The Daily Poem. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another one.